What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Roots Podcast. Today, I have some special guests. They have renovated a school bus, they have 2 dogs, and they have been traveling for maybe almost a year now. I'm not completely sure, but I'm so hyped that they're here. So please give a warm welcome to Scott and Ash from the Hive Drive. You can say
Thanks.
hi.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, this is it was really awesome. So if you guys just want to introduce yourselves and real quick how you met and what you guys love to do and how long you've been traveling.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we met, we're Scott and Ash, our dogs are Tank and Toff. And we met at the Krispy Kreme race, which is so fun. Like anytime I think about that, I just love that. That's how we met. And if you don't know what the Krispy Kreme race is, it's this charity race where you start at a starting line, you run 2.5 miles to a Krispy Kreme donuts, you scarf down a dozen donuts, then you run another 2.5 miles, and you try to do it in under an hour, which most avid runners could do that in under an hour, but the kicker is trying to eat the dozen donuts in the middle of it, all in the name of charity. Vomit everywhere. I mean, what better way could you meet your person than that? But we met at the we met at the starting line of that, totally hit it off. We ended up running the first part of the race together. We're just chatting away, having a good old time. And then we lost each other. And then he was waiting for me at the finish line because he didn't eat the donuts. I did. And we reconnected after that. The rest is history.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
It's so wild.
So I'm originally from England. And so then, after we started dating, got engaged, got married, we then had to go through the whole green card process and all that stuff. And so that was a fun time. And now we've been married almost 10 years. And for the last nine-ish months, we've been traveling full time on the road and in a self-converted school bus. So.
And what's really cool too is both of us got bit by the adventure and travel bug way young. Both of our families valued travel, and that transcended to us. Both of our families would work really, really hard to take us on to take you on a trip, to take me on a trip. And we got bit by the travel bug early on, and it was definitely something we valued when we met, and that we continue to foster as we've grown together.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great first meeting story. I love that. That's really awesome. So that's just hilarious. I love it. So how long, what month did you guys start traveling? Do you know?
Yeah, so we hit the road full time in the bus last August. So it's just been 9 months now. Okay. And before then, we were traveling, just not in the bus. Yeah. We were traveling, through Europe, Africa, the States, just going on trips, seeing friends, family, making new friends, family, and saving up for that stuff. And then all the while working towards the bus. And so that way we could just have rotating backyards, all the time. Yeah.
We would have probably rode sooner if we stopped traveling, but we kept traveling building. So.
Yeah, it's true. My tough.
So, well, I guess you kind of said earlier, you both, when you were younger, you loved the idea of traveling, if I'm understanding correctly. So when did at what point were you let's find a school bus and let's renovate it and let's hit the road?
Yeah. So I think for us, we had this idea when we first got married. We were the first year of our marriage, let's just buy an RV. Let's just travel all across the United States and let's just go explore. We're kind of we're already broke, so why not? Just go for it anyway. And so that was the idea. And then when we got married and was going through the green card process, we realized it was a lot more intense than we anticipated, and we needed a stable address for all the forms and everything that we had to fill out and stuff. Yeah. And so that kind of got put on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it took me 2.5 years to get my green card. And so by that time, it's that dream, I wouldn't say got forgotten, but it was just you've just been focusing on everyday life.
Yeah.
And so after that, we just got regular jobs. We were working 9 to 5. Long story short, jumping ahead, but we ended up buying a house, quote unquote settling down. And after that, we just one day just had this realization, man, is this it? Like, have we kind of like settled? And not that there's anything wrong with that, but for us, we just had this like dream and desire to go out, do more. And so it's funny, we tell the story. Ashley went to the restroom one day and came back. And as she came back, I was like, let's just sell everything, move into it, and travel.
Awesome.
And Ashley was like, how long have I been in the restroom for? Like, what just happened? And so like that was just usually a random normal day.
Yeah.
So we started then dreaming of like, okay, let's like maybe do van life. And then we're like, just with our lifestyle and the dogs, we're like, maybe that's too small. So then we started looking at RVs again.
Yeah.
And then we stumbled upon a schoolie for the first time. And we were like, man, this is so cool. And it was actually Chase and Maria Jose from Tio Adventura, that bus that we found. And they're some of our good friends now, which is so cool, kind of seeing this full circle.
And this was before it was like as prevalent and trendy and TikTok worthy as it is now. So like it wasn't as known of a thing socially, I would say, like when we found it. So we just like we hadn't really seen many people because this was back in like 2018. When we first saw a schoolie, Maria Jose and Chase's. And so we were like, oh my goodness, we should do that. That looks awesome. Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the idea came from, just like a random normal day. And then from there we started looking for school buses. We knew nothing about school buses. I remember the first time we went to a place to see them, and this guy was like, oh, we have an international bus over here. And I didn't know international was a brand of school bus. And so I was like, oh, like, where's this from? Is it like Europe or Mexico? And he's like, no, like international's a brand. I was like, oh, okay.
Almost like
the moment you realize,
it's like, I know nothing.
We're definitely professional.
So yeah, I would say like there's always kind of been like a dream that's like been back there. But then like the day that we decided it was just like any normal day, really.
We were just really in sync with it. We were just like, you know what, why not? Like that was kind of the banner of our lives, was why not? Like, you know, so if it all goes wrong, at least we made great memories in the midst of it going wrong. Or if it all goes right, then we actually took the leap to do it. So
that's really awesome. Well, speaking of like learning more and like the process, what was the renovation like? Like how many things were you like, oh man, we're really backed up by this, and oh, we could have been out sooner? Like what was that like?
Yeah. So I feel like the renovation process was literally one of the biggest learning curves of our lives, because
the bus had curves.
So that's the literal part. Like we had worked with house flips and house renovations before. My family, my parents are realtors and have rentals and stuff like that, and have done house flips. And so we've helped them with that and other projects with other people. So we were used to some level of construction. We weren't used to building our entire home, but we were some level of like being handy. But none of that really translated into the bus build, and we assumed it would. And the parts that did were like some of the woodworking and stuff. But actually building out the framing of the bus and getting all that done, all that was new, like territory. And Scott had done residential electrician's work before, and had done a program for that. But that didn't necessarily convert to the solar energy and how all that works, you know? And so it was like, we had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, as far as like, we were somewhat competent, but then we also knew nothing about what we were doing at the same time, you know? And so it was a really big learning curve. We always joke that we attended
you froze a little bit.
YouTube University during our renovation process. We were literally just on YouTube constantly watching like videos of people who had done it or shared parts of their build experience. And I mean, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah. And how many seats were in your bus? Like how many did you pull out since it was a schoolie?
Oh, I don't remember. A lot.
That's a good question. I have no idea. I know it used to see like 72 middle schoolers and 50 something high schoolers. But I'm not sure. I know like for us, like the renovation was like, I guess we kind of went into it with a little optimistic, because we were like, we'll get it knocked out in a year. And
you went out again. It's a little bit frozen.
parts to that though was like, one, we didn't, and so we just had regular normal jobs, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like we didn't have all this money to pour into this. And so it was like more any extra money we had from this month's, wage, then hey, let's put it into the bus. And so that kind of slowed us down a little bit. But then also like we didn't stop living our travel life. Like we always got people like joking with us, like, dude, if you stop traveling, you'd be the bus by now. But for us,
the bus
it was like the bus was always the vehicle to live this lifestyle. So we didn't want to put that hold while we're trying to build it out. Like I think like one of our big motivations was just like, we're not promised tomorrow, and so why put everything on hold when I don't even know if I'm going to be here in a year. It's like, no. And so I think that's why it kind of took us a little longer, because we didn't just focus everything on the bus. We kept living lives at the same time.
We definitely would have finished a lot sooner if we had channeled all that energy into just the bus. But for us, that wasn't the right move. Whereas for some of us, it was, they get builds done in like 4 months, 6 months, which is amazing. Whereas for us, I think that would have burnt us out, and we know how to pace ourselves.
A balance.
A
balance between living, your life here, and then have your project here, and you're feeding a little bit of that part of your life into building that. But that's really awesome. I love that. So let me find my next question here. So when you had the bus done and you were ready to go, did you know where you wanted to go and like go first? And were you just like ready to go anywhere?
Yes.
I think like our kind of like way to approach it is like the plan is to have no plan. And so like we do like plan out some gist, but it's like we're only like everything's ideal, like okay, it'd be cool to go here and then up here. But like even that, like not everything works out on timelines. Sometimes unexpected things happen. But we knew like we had friends that's like we want to go see these guys, stay with these guys for a little bit. And I think one of our first big things was Ashley's family has a farm up in Iowa, and that was kind of like the big first trip was like, hey, let's go up to this farm. Ashley's always talked about her family in Iowa and how different like even their life is.
Experienced it yet.
Because we were living in Raleigh, North Carolina, and so then like Ashley's like, just this farm life out in Iowa is so different, and I haven't been up there with her family and stuff. And so that was like one of the first like big trips. Like that's what we was always like looking forward to.
So we slowly made our way there, which is how we got connected with you in the first place, because one of our first stops was your family's hip camp spot, which is absolutely epic. And so that was like exactly what we needed, because our first day on the road, we ended up there at that spot, like our first time, a full time living it.
After breaking down.
And we had broken down 2 times. We had much go wrong that first day. I mean, it was Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen. And that's what happened for us our first day of travel. But then to pull up to that spot, which is just like, we tell everyone about that spot, that was like such a treat, because like we had the hot tub, we had the beautiful views, like it was just perfect. But we definitely were just kind of like, okay, let's just hit the road, make plans a couple days or a week in advance if we can. And sometimes it's the day of like plans. But the big trip was to get out to the farm, and we did. I mean, we were like farmers. We did our little farm life, and we loved it. I was like, I think people sleep on the Midwest. Everyone's focused about going out west and exploring, which is absolutely amazing. But I feel like there's something really special and unique about a sleepy town with this like tradition that's so different than our normal lives. That was just experience.
And I think what's unique about our travel as well is that like we're not necessarily these like big nature, let's go out into the middle of nowhere type people. Like we love that, but I think like for us, it's like we want to just experience as much as we can from like one of our favorite places we've been is Chicago. Like we'd never been to Chicago. We ended up parking the bus like a couple miles from downtown Chicago and living in Chicago for like 3 days, which was like,
that's awesome.
Again, that's not what people envision when they think of bus life. Like they think
Right.
natural forests out in the boondocks, and so like we want to experience it all. We want to do
We want to
like the
experience that
city.
in
We
this.
want to, yeah, exactly. We want to be by the beach and the mountains. Like we just want to embrace as much as we can.
That's amazing.
I love that she's just so focused.
I know, she's sitting there. She's so cute.
Are you focused? Do you want to say anything for the podcast? Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, speaking of dogs, what is it like sharing the space with dogs? Because there can be hair everywhere and you got food and you got water, but yeah, what is that like?
Yeah, I feel like for us, we are just people who don't really get like bothered or annoyed by our dogs. We're like the opposite. We're like, please give me more affection, more love, like more. So like we don't mind it at all. And we really love it. They thrive in it. So when we first adopted Toffee, because she's like 2.5 now, she had really bad separation anxiety. And when we were in her home, she would tear things up and was just going through her puphood and learning how to normalize her separation anxiety. And so we didn't know how she would do in the bus, because it's like, hey, if you tear this up, this is all we own. Everything we own is here. So like, please don't. Like I had a conversation as if she understood, and I'm like, please don't. But I feel like for them, especially because they've been a part of it as it's turned into this home, they've, and we started sleeping in here before we hit the road and started traveling full time. We started living in here before then. And it really has become like their safe space, and the separation anxiety she was dealing with, she's really worked her way out of.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we honestly love it.
But I think some of that as well, like we always get, it's funny because there's always like people that like, like it's not fair on the dogs, how do you leave them to the bus and this and this. But it's like, I think for us, it's like, you just got to think about it is like, our bus has everything a house has. It has controlled AC, heat, it has water. And given there might not be as much room, but it's like where our lifestyle also gives us so much more time with the dogs. So we're outside, we're playing with them, we're walking them. Like really like when we had our regular lives, so to speak, and a house, it's like we also had 9-to-5 jobs. And so like one of us would come home for lunchtime, let them out, and then they'd be back in the house. Whereas our lifestyle now, because it is remote, like we spend so much more quality time with the dogs that I think it helps Toffee with like her anxiety, because like we're always around her. It's very rare that we're gone for long periods of time.
And Tank, he's our old man. He's 10 and he's just the chillest dude ever. He's just kind of like, cool, is this what we're doing? Love it. Like he's just like easy going. He's literally laying at our feet right now, just chilling. But yeah, we've really, really loved it. And we wondered about things like, dogs drink a lot of water, all that stuff, like, and we only have 100 gallons of fresh water. How's that going to work out? But it's honestly been really manageable, and it's worked out really good for like their basic needs and things like that. The only time that I feel like we were kind of like really learning some new territory with them living on the bus with us was back in late August. So shortly after we hit the road, Tank had gotten pretty sick. And we were just like, okay, we don't have our vet nearby. We don't have our go-to like person who knows. And we were in the middle of Iowa where the vets weren't used to working with house pets. They were only used to working with cows. And so we were just like,
what do you do?
Like and then on top of that, while we was traveling, like some days we're just like traveling every other day. And so we're going to new places, stopping to get to location. And long story short, like Tank found a toad and grabbed a hold of it, and we didn't think anything of it. And then he started foaming at the mouth, and so we got like
scared.
Super scared, thinking like he's having a seizure, like is this toad poisonous? And that's when we had like a realization of like we're in a different state. We don't know what toads or frogs and stuff are in. Like in North Carolina, we know our surroundings. But then also that it's like we didn't know where the closest vet was. We didn't know like where, and so like I had a moment right then where I just went into like sheer panic, like, oh my gosh, like what have we done? Like we don't know where we are. And so that's like also like shaped part of us, like
to be more
prepared and to understand like, okay, this is where we're parked. Now it's funny, like whenever we drive into a place now and we see like a local emergency vet, we're like, okay, there's a vet, right? Anyway, long story short, it just turned out this toads have a like a layer on their skin that is like super vile tasting. And it's harmless, but it makes dogs like instantly gag. And so we ended up finding that out, and he was completely fine.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it's learning curves.
That was definitely,
Yeah,
those things
for sure.
with them in this bus. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Dogs, they can be such just amazing. Like, I mean, we have dogs, but they bark at like everything. We had a dog, Bailey, before the dogs that we have now, and he was like the sweetest thing. And like you could just sit there with him, like just time, and it was really sweet. So pets are really a gift for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like for us, I mean, like in our house, the dogs kind of have roamed the house anyway. So it's like there's not much with the bus.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, dog hair everywhere, but since it's a smaller space, it's also easier to clean up because
That's true.
it's a smaller space. And then also like our dogs are also a great security. Like Toffee will bark at any noise outside of the bus, and so there is other benefits as well.
Yeah,
to
they are like our number one security defense. Like when people walk past us in a parking lot or whatever, and they see that we have dogs, they're kind of like, "Oh, okay, got it." And they're not tiny dogs, as you can see. They're big dogs, so they help keep us safe.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I have 2 questions left, and we have about 20 minutes. So what is the most difficult part about bus life? Just that one thing that's just like, oh.
Yeah. I'll let you start.
I'll say, like, for me, I think like 2 that come to mind. One is just like driving the bus everywhere. Like I got so comfortable with driving, but it's also like when I first started driving I was like super nervous. Like I've never drove anything this big. I've drove like U-Haul trucks, but it's just different when also like your house is in this thing, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
if I brake too hard, things break, and and
Which
so like
happened.
and so it's like learning that, but then also like you have to plan a little different. Like I'm having to be so much more conscious of bridges and like the height of the bridges, right, going up roads that I can't turn around in easily, whereas like with a car you don't have to think of those things. So I think it's just like a like understanding of how to drive differently. You can't slam on your brakes like you can in a car. It's like I'm having like 50 feet ahead of me. It's like if I see a car braking, and I've got to start braking before I get up to that car. And so just kind of that. And then I think like the second thing for me is just like we've not had any issues with it, but like everything on our bus is finite, meaning that like our water, we have 100 gallons. If we run showers, leave water running, we're going to run out of that and then have to find a place. So our gas, our propane, and even like electric. Like we run off solar. So if we don't have good weather for X amount of days and we're running too much power, we could run out of power. We have backups to that. Like we can run it off the bus, we can run it off our generator. But I think it's like just being conscious of everything, like how you wash your hands, like being conscious of like how we wash them and how quickly and how quick we take showers, how often we take showers, how we do our dishes. Like everything just has to be done slightly different. And so it's not like we've ever ran out or ever come into like an actual issue of like, what do we do? But it's just,
we are so conscious of
you just don't have that same freedom in your mind to be like, oh, it's fine that I left that
light. Like in a regular house, it's like when I'm brushing my teeth, it's like you can just let the water run, marinate you. Whereas like it does take a lot more intentionality to sufficiently do this. Like, and so I think that's kind of what you're getting at too, is just that more mindfulness.
I'm kind of like planning, knowing that like if we're off grid, we could probably stay off grid for about 2 weeks before we run out of water. And so it's like knowing that idea of like within that 2 weeks, we have to find another place to fill up. And so kind of just that like planning nature, which again, we've not ran into that issue, but I think the hardest thing is it's always in the back of your mind. Like, okay, let me check our water tank. Okay, we're halfway, kind of processing that.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, the hardest thing is also like one of the best things. And this is just because this is my personality. I am a very sentimental, relational. I love my people and I love them big. And so like it's also one of the best things, but just having to say bye, like when we roll out and when we leave a place.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
but the beauty and the gift is that we get to visit all these people that we know and love. We get to spend genuine quality time and do life and live life with them and just live everyday life together, parked in their front yard or parked down the road at a brewery.
Yeah.
Like, so cool.
Yeah.
But the hard thing for me is just having to say bye, like when that time's over. And I know I'll see them again. I know we can travel to them again. Like our house is literally on wheels. We can talk them whenever. But I'm definitely one of those people. I wish everyone I loved, we all lived in this one little space together and traveled together, you know, like, so I think that part can be hard. But the good is I also get to spend so much, like I would have never been able to spend a month at my family's farm in Iowa because I would have always had to come back for work, or I would have felt like I was imposing on their space. Whereas when you have your own space, you don't feel like you're imposing as much and stuff. So it's a double-edged sword for me. Like it's the best thing, it's the hardest thing.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think when people think of the lifestyle that we're living in, tiny living, I think people think the hardest thing is the tiny living. And for it's like that part's easy. Like what we love about the tiny living for us is we're not minimalist by nature, but we've adapted to this lifestyle is that we have everything we need and everything has its space. And so like once we're in the bus and everything's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, like it's easy. Like I think the hard things is like when things go wrong or things break or like, but full time living for us has been super easy.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. Well, one more question and then we'll wrap it up. Is social media and what made you like want to put this out there? Just tell me.
So I think for us, like we knew what we was doing was a little different compared to like most people, right? Like it's not every somebody buys a school bus to convert. And so I think part of us just wanted to share that journey. I think even with our friends and family, like we just wanted to share that, document it. And then also for our purposes, it's cool to kind of look back and see like, oh yeah, I remember when the bus looked like that.
Yeah, documentation.
Exactly. And so
having like home movies all the time.
Absolutely. So that's kind of like where it all started. And then obviously like as we kind of jumped into this, it grew, it developed, and we're kind of like part of this huge community now that through social media, through people that are doing similar stuff or just interested in this lifestyle. And I think for us that's been one of the best and most beautiful things about this social media journey is we kind of first started with like, hey, let us share our things, like, hey, let's share what we're doing. And then as we kind of grew in this, it's like what we love most is connecting with people in this community. And like our greatest friends now we met through social media, and like now we're like best friends with them. Some of our good friends. Awesome. I love this story is our good friends they're called Outback Schooling, Nicole and Charlie. We kind of started our conversion at the same time, so we kept up with each other.
We had similar buses, we had similar layout plans. Like we talked a lot online. We
started chatting online, even like FaceTime, and so we became really good friends. And the first time we met each other was we planned a trip to Hawaii and stayed in a tiny house together. And so it's like this is the first time meeting people in real life. And
but we were already such good friends because we had built this relationship over 2 years.
So I think like the community aspect of social media can be such a great and positive thing. Like that's our favorite thing through this journey for sure.
And I would add to that too. I just feel like it's so interesting because I think back when I was in high school and everyone was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like job option that is now a job option that we're kind of living, that wasn't a part of the conversation at all. It was like you weren't gonna be a content creator, you weren't gonna, like, that wasn't even a known thing at all. And so like it is cool too because it is still such a young career, it is still such a young thing, like it's a newish even if it's been going on for like a decade, that's still pretty young compared to other careers. And so it feels like you're kind of in this pioneering phase of figuring out what that looks like, figuring out what that really means, and like how to create healthy boundaries with it and just all of it. And so that's been like cool to be a part of and see. But the biggest and best thing is really just, sharing with our friends and family, building community, like Scott said, and just like, I don't know, just becoming friends and meeting people who you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to even cross paths with, because they live in India and you live here. Like, how would we usually cross paths? We wouldn't. But then you can create genuine bonds. Like with the click of a button, which is just really cool. But yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on here and sharing. You guys have an awesome story. I love watching your posts and your YouTube videos when they come out. So thank you for joining me today. Hope you guys have a blessed, wonderful day and continue traveling. And I'm so excited for you guys to see what comes in the future.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. This was really fun.
Yeah. I love this. This was really great. You did I just love the setup. I love that you prepped us even with the questions and all that. This is really cool and we're excited for you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Well, that was Scott and Ashley from the Hive Drive. That was my first time meeting them. I'm so hyped for their content. I love what they post. And I'm so excited for you guys to see this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube or Apple Podcast or Spotify, and please make sure to go give the Hive Drive a follow because they're really awesome. They're on Instagram and YouTube. I'll link their YouTube in the description of this video. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. Please follow and subscribe. Put those notifications on so you don't miss any of my uploads. Thanks again for watching, and have a great